And we are back with another episode of ClubCast. And back again, we have Piping Hot Gas, joined by
So,
both. We got Kevin, who was here on our last episode, and now we got Josh here as well. So thank you guys for coming back on. Me and Jake had a fun time talking baseball with Kevin last week. Now we're excited to get another Mets fans perspective this week. A lot of stuff to talk about, especially that deals with everything with your guys' teams, kind of, because the big thing that we'll kick it off with is Aaron Nola is the first free agent, the first big fish to get signed, and he re-signs with the Philadelphia Phillies. Terms of the contract, 7 years, $172 million. So, Jake, I will throw it to your way. You're the Phillies fan. How excited are you to have Nola back for the foreseeable future? And what does this mean going forward for the Phillies and for the pitching market?
I don't know, man. Like, obviously, I love Aaron Nola, and I was excited him being back. But in my eyes, we talked about it. I don't think there was ever really a shot he was leaving. We heard the reports of multiple teams being in on him and him turning down more money to come back to Philadelphia, which, again, something that I figured would happen just because the things that he said and the things that he's built throughout his 8 years here. It's nice to see it get out of the way early so you don't have to, mess with it and worry about the rest of the pitchers. Like you said, the pitching market is kind of full, and it's going pretty quick in terms of the mid-level guys like Lance Lynn, and then the low-level guys like Kyle Gibson going to the Cardinals. But yeah, it's nice to have him back. It ends up being like $24 million a year, which is nothing for a top-level pitcher. Some bonuses in there, straightforward. So yeah, it's nice to see Nola back, and then, just keeping that hometown kid. He's probably going to be one of the best pitchers in Phillies history. He already is. And then, add on 7 more years to that. He'll have some good numbers at the end of his tenure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything around that. It would have definitely been weird to see Nola in a different uniform. It would have been even worse to see him in a Braves uniform, which was arguably pretty close to happening.
Yeah.
But Josh, let me get your perspective. Now you have to deal with Aaron Nola and the Philadelphia Phillies core for the next 7 years because I believe they have 7 players that are under big term multi-million-dollar contracts for the next, I think, 2 or 3 years. So, Josh, what do you think about this Phillies ball club that seems to just be getting better as the years go on?
Dude, honestly, I'm all for it because, the Mets and Phillies is like such a classic rivalry, and over the last couple years, both ways, it would either be the Phillies would be subpar, or the Mets would be subpar. It's it wasn't really as competitive as a rivalry like that should be. But now both teams spending this money and having the teams that they have, dude, it's going to be fireworks every time they play. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Kevin, what do you think? Another Mets fan's perspective, Aaron Nola staying in the NL East. Was it a horrible idea to see Aaron Nola potentially go to the Braves, or are you happy that he stayed with the Phillies, or did you want him to go somewhere else?
I mean, if he would have went to the Braves, that would have been just a mess. Him on the Phillies, I feel like he's a perfect fit for Philly. And like Josh said, it's just going to bring more fireworks to Mets Phillies in the upcoming future. So I'm excited. I'm always a big fan of when the Mets play the Phillies, so I'm pumped.
Yeah, I like what Josh said. We got the Phillies and the Mets, who both of their ownership and front office, they kind of don't care about what the dollar figure is. If it's a guy they really want, they'll go out and get him. And I 100% respect that mentality, especially with the Phillies. Especially, I mentioned they got 7 guys under long-term deals. That wasn't something that the Phillies were usually accustomed to before. Especially after, you could argue after the whole Ryan Howard situation, they kind of never wanted to get these guys under long-term contracts again. But I think Dave Dombrowski kind of has changed tune for when he was with Boston, is because now he's getting these guys. Yes, he's getting for longer spans of years, but $24 million for Aaron Nola, who would arguably slot in as the ace for any other MLB team, is a bargain, in my opinion. And now you still keep him on that Phillies pitching rotation, which I still believe is the best in the National League just because of how deep it is. So they're in a good spot, and they're arguably, it's been reported that they're not done potentially with the starting rotation. I don't think they're going to get any more big names, but they could always go on the trade market. I mean, Jake wrote an article, posted it today or yesterday when this is posted on the Diamond Club, talking about Dylan Cease has been a name that's been thrown around there. So I think the Phillies are going to be extremely active. But yeah, I'm so glad that I talked to Jake off air. I was just like, I'm just glad when a player kind of stays with one team, especially Bryce Harper is the face of the Phillies. But at least when I think about the Phillies rebuild, it pretty much kicked off or kind of went into full gear when they traded Cole Hamels away. And guess who started immediately after Cole Hamels was traded away? It was Aaron Nola. So he's been the face of this franchise pretty much since 2015 is when Hamels was traded. So it's good to see him potentially going down as one of the best Phillies pitchers in their history.
Yeah, Aaron Nola, man, you can't say enough about him. I think I like what you said about Dombrowski changing the the concept of the Phillies, because I mean that's what they're doing now. You look at the teams that win; they're signing these long-term deals, a lot of money, but like you said, $24 million for an ace is not that much money. It's people look at that $170 million is like, oh, I don't want to spend that on a player, but 7 years, $20 million a year, that's what, less than 10% of your budget if you're the Phillies or a team like the Mets, another spender. It was just a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I'll throw this question to any of you guys' way. So I was kind of debating, especially the way the market shifted. I believe more players are keen to getting the years they want rather than the money, because I think Nola technically for per year average annual salary, he turned down more money from the Braves and the Dodgers, who were reported as the runner-up. I thought Aaron Nola was going to get closer to 200 million. Do we still think this is just like kind of either under his value, or is 2023 did that affect him?
I don't know. I think, like I said, like you said, I think the years is important to him. Definitely. You want to play for as long as you can. You know what I mean? If the difference between 30 million a year for 4 years or 5 years, or 25 for 7, you get to play a couple extra years, and then you get that $25 million in those couple extra years. I think it's more so, like you said, just sticking home. His 2023 probably affected it. They probably used that against him. But I mean, when you go on a note like he did in the postseason, how good he was in the postseason, other than his last start, you can't really look back at that season and be like, hey, you're not an ace.
All right, so looking forward in the pitching market, I would say Blake Snell is more likely the next guy to get the big deal in terms of the pitching market. Josh, where do you kind of see him fitting, and what type of contract? Does he get more than Aaron Nola?
It's tough to say, because he won the Cy Young, so he's obviously going to use that in whatever team he negotiates with, or that's just going to be his main point, is how he's won the Cy Young. And I honestly see him staying with the Padres, just because I know how the Padres like to operate. I don't know. Rest in peace to their owner. They're really in like a panic kind of state, if I had to guess right now. So I feel like they would do everything they can to keep Blake Snell, because they know what he can do and what he did last season. So I feel like they would want to lock him up, especially when they're already dealing with all of this drama with like Juan Soto, and if he's going to get traded. I think they're still trying to find their direction. I think getting Blake Snell back is like the first thing that they want to do to try and set that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the Padres' outlook. I have no idea what they're going to do, because it seems like in my mind, I feel like you would want to retain the reigning Cy Young winner. And he's had a pretty good track record in San Diego in the 2 of the 3 years that he's been there. Kevin, what about you? What are you looking at for now Snell's market? I feel like, can he get over that $200 million?
I mean, I could definitely see it happening, but like Josh said, like if the Padres were smart, they would get back Blake Snell. You can't let him go. Like Cy Young winner this year, like I wouldn't let him go. If I was the Padres, I would have had him signed already. I would have put every power that I could into it and bring him back to San Diego. So if they let him go, I think it's stupid on their part.
Take another loan out.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. The only reason I think that he actually will get more than Aaron Nola is because of his agent. His agent, Scott Boras. I think he'll spin this away. I really do think Aaron Nola did take a little bit of a pay cut just to stay in Philadelphia. And me and Jake, we already discussed this numerous amounts of times. You know, if a player wants to, at the end of the day, even with an agent, like if a player wants to stay in one spot, he will talk about that. And Aaron Nola even alluded to that in his press conference on Monday. He really said that this was really the only place he wanted to go to. Of course, he's going to hear other offers so he could get the price that he wants. But at the end of the day, he wanted to stay in Philadelphia. If he wanted to go somewhere to get more money or even closer to 200, I really think Aaron Nola could have gotten that. I just don't think he was concerned about the money. I definitely think he wanted the years. But as for Snell, he is the next domino to fall. I don't think he's worth $200 million. If I was the Dodgers, who are apparently rumored to be very heavily interested in him, I personally would want them to stay away just because I feel like he's been up and down throughout his career, and his walk rate kind of scares me because I don't think he can replicate that. But I still think some team's going to give him almost maybe 7 years, $30 million, maybe over $30 million a year, and that'll get him well over that $200 million mark. So, it really just depends on how the market is. I feel like Aaron Nola did get lowball a little bit, but he set the market now, and you could look off of what he had. Snell had a Cy Young winning season, so he's probably going to be like, all right, well, if he's getting $24.5 million, I won the Cy Young. He had an ERA at 4. I deserve at least $30 or $32 million a year.
Yeah, I think you took the words out of my mouth. I think Nola really set him up for that bigger contract because before we were going into the offseason, I mean, they were projected really similar marks. I think while, like you said, 2 Cy Youngs, you know, coming off the year of a Cy Young, Nola, though, out of his 8 years he's been with us, I mean, 5 of them have been elite, like 4 or 5 of them have been elite. I think him setting that 170 mark or whatever, 172, I think Snell uses that as leverage to say, hey, I'm a 2-time Cy Young coming off a Cy Young winning season. I deserve more than that. Like you said, I don't think he's worth $200 million, but he might be able to get somebody to buy into that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It'll be interesting to see. I don't think he'll sign as soon as Nola did. It was kind of surprising how soon Nola did sign. So I hope it kicks off the free agency as we get closer to the winning meetings, which are in, I believe, 2 weeks from today. So, but moving on, we've talked about it before. I've talked about it in other places that I've been. It's the rumor season. It is all over the place. There's been a bunch of speculation about certain players. But the other day, there was a big tweet by one Hector Gomez that I kind of was scrolling through on Twitter right when I woke up in the morning. And it was that Mike Trout. It was that the Dodgers were interested not only trying to sign Shohei Ohtani, but that they were extremely interested in trying to trade for Mike Trout. Trout's name in trade rumors hasn't really came up a lot until recently, just because of we talked about in previous episodes during the season where he was pretty unhappy about how the Angels were going. You know, he's been there for his entire career. They've only made 1 playoff appearance in that time, and he's not getting old. He's not getting any younger. So these years that they're missing, he definitely wants to play for a winning team. Not so much about the Dodgers, but Josh, I'll ask you: the idea of Mike Trout getting traded, is it even possible? Due to not only his contract but his injury history, would a team give up their prospect and money to get this guy?
Ultimately, in the end, I think it's all about how close that certain team that's going to make that offer feels they are to winning a title. Like if they feel they're a piece away and piece or 2 away, I think that they will make that that trade package for Trout because he's definitely not the player he was 3-4 years ago. That's definitely the case, but it's still Mike Trout. Like he's still putting up these numbers. So he's going to help whoever he goes to, but it's like you said, he's getting up there in age and this contract is a lot of money that's going to be eaten up. So you need to be sure that, you're going to take advantage of this while you still can. So that's if the team isn't in contention, then I would stay away from Mike Trout. But if they're a piece away, then I say go for it. It'd be worth it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. A Mike Trout trade is very interesting if the Angels are willing to listen. Kevin, I'll kind of ask you the similar question. Is a Mike Trout trade even possible?
I mean, it could be possible. Like you said, he's very injury prone. I feel like every season it's like he's always out for a couple games or even more than a couple games. So it's like, what team is going to risk trying to get him? But then, like Josh said, it's Mike Trout. It's the name. We know how he plays. We know how good he is, and I don't know. It's going to be pretty interesting to see, like, if he does get traded somewhere else. Like, it'd be weird too. Like Mike Trout on a different team would be so weird.
Yeah, it definitely would be the storyline of the offseason, even with Ohtani on the market in my mind, just because I get that Ohtani's kind of taking the spotlight, but from when we've all been growing up, Mike Trout's been that guy who's been that perennial all-star, perennial MVP. Him to get traded would be a huge news in the MLB. So, Jake, I'll actually shoot it to you now because the Philadelphia Phillies are one of those teams that he's been linked to the most. A Mike Trout trade, if you're the Phillies GM, would you do it?
100%, instantly. I you can think. I understand that he'll be 39, pushing 40 at the end of his contract. I understand he's making a shit ton of money. I understand that he's not played a ton of games in the last 3 to 4 years. But man, just looking at his baseball reference page from 2020 back, 5th in MVP, 1st in MVP, 2nd in MVP, 4th in MVP, 1st in MVP, 2nd in MVP, 1st in MVP. Every year he's there, man. He's a 300 hitter, 40 home run hitter. He's a top, I couldn't even tell you, 15, 10 baseball player of all time at, in terms of skill, something like that. Like Josh said earlier, we're close. It's not like we're a team that is, an 80-win team or a team like last year, or I guess it's 2022 now, that barely sneaks into the playoffs. We're a team that could, I don't want to say it, but we could battle that Braves team for the division if everything's clicking. It's obviously rough with the contract, with the injury history, and obviously what you need to give up to get him. But man, it's Mike fucking Trout, dog. It's Mike Trout. Even in 2022 when he played 119 games, he finished 8th in MVP. He's an incredible player. So slotting him in that spot where Rojas was hitting last year or Jake Cave was hitting to end our season, it might have been a different story.
Yeah, I definitely. So this is where I kind of changed my tune. So one of the things I use that a lot of other baseball YouTubers they use when they're evaluating trades is baseball trade values. And just looking at the numbers with Mike Trout, due to his age, his injury history, and the amount of money he's making on baseball trade values today, he has a negative $83.9 million estimated trade value, which is, I believe, like the second or third. The first is like Anthony Rendon, who's like a negative 165. So that makes sense. Trout, I believe, has 7 or 8 years remaining on his contract extension. It's at $37.5 million per year. Just to get it straight off the bat, the only way, even if the Phillies or the Dodgers are trading for him, is the Angels have to pay some of that money.
Yep.
And I wrote an article for Dodgers Beat saying, all right, well, how realistic can a trade, not even just for the Dodgers be, how much money do the Angels have to eat? Just to even get that value back to like maybe even 40 or 50, like 30, like negative, they would have to send over at least anywhere from 50, 70, 80, maybe even half the contract to get them off their books. And from an Angels fan's perspective or an Angels PR person, that just doesn't look good. Because all right, now you're trading Mike Trout, and you're also it's similar to the Nolan Arenado situation where they're like, all right, we're going to trade you Nolan, and we're also going to give you a couple $100 million so you can pay off his contract. So I don't think it would look good from that standpoint. It also wouldn't look good because we talked about last week. Why do you hire Ron Washington? Why do you hire him? And you plan on trading Mike Trout, who, I mean, realistically should be in your plans if you are looking to contend. If not, I think a trade with the Dodgers makes the most sense, even though it would never happen just because of the bad blood between the Angels ownership and the Dodgers just as a team. Because I think there is a situation where the Angels could trade Mike Trout and get enough major league and minor league talent back from a team like the Dodgers, who, like you said, Jake, like if you're a team that's trying to compete for a championship, not just make the playoffs, they would be like, all right, who fucking cares? Because I want to win a ring. Like I want to, the flags fly forever. That's the motto. And a team like the Dodgers and the Phillies would do that. They don't care about the money. They care about winning right now. And the Phillies, the Dodgers, I mean, even the Mets to an extent, like they have a window that they have to contend and win. But I really doubt that the Angels would move Trout, at least right now, because I really feel like the ball's in his court. And from what everything's been reported, Sam Blum is the beat writer for The Athletic that follows the Angels. He pretty much kicked this entire rumor down like immediately after it was supposed to. He was like, spoke to Mike Trout. He said he's going to be on the Angels next year. He spoke to the Angels president of baseball ops. He said he'll be there next year. Artie Moreno, the owner, was like, I'm under the assumption he'll be here next year. So I'm pretty much going to be under the assumption that he's going to be there next year. But say Shohei Ohtani, because I believe they still think he could sign back. If he leaves and the Angels are off to a really bad start and Trout goes into the office and he's like, hey, look, I want to move on. I feel like they would listen. So I don't think it would happen in the off season, but maybe at the trade deadline, you could get something moving. I honestly, if I had to bet on it, if he's getting traded at all throughout the rest of his career, it's probably either the Phillies or the Yankees. Those are the only two teams. Like I said, the Dodgers dream of Ohtani and Trout coming to LA, the real LA, and playing together entices me. It excites me because at least now they would be on a team that knows what they're doing, at least throughout the entire organization. But I doubt Trout's traded. I don't know if you guys do. You guys think Trout would even be traded? I honestly don't think he's going to get traded his entire career. So,
yeah, I think you hit it right on the head, dude. Because the two things that you really have to think about is what Mike Trout is thinking, which nobody knows because he doesn't say shit, and what the Angels are thinking. The Angels, like you said, seem to think they're still in on Ohtani because I don't see any rumors about them on any other players. If I'm the Angels and I don't think I'm in on Ohtani, I'm going out and getting everybody else. I'm not waiting around. I agree with you. If it's going to be anywhere, it's got to be like a huge market that's just got a ton of talent and a ton of assets. And of course, he's a big Eagles fan.
If he goes anywhere, it's going to be Philly. That's the one thing like I'm cemented on when it comes to Trout. Like if he never leaves the Angels, because I'm pretty sure he has a no trade clause, so he basically can control where he goes. So if he goes anywhere, it's going to be Philly. I don't think he's going anywhere else. He'll either retire an Angel or he's going to retire a Philly.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Well, it sounds like Mike Trout will be forever stuck in Anaheim. So it's unfortunate with him, but he did sign the deal. I brought that up a couple episodes ago. He could have tested free agency if he wanted to go on a winning team. But if a Trout trade's announced either this offseason or this upcoming trade deadline, I'd be extremely surprised. I would probably roll over if it was to the Dodgers because I would do a double take. Just like even when I saw this rumor, it's kind of why I hate this time of the year because the Hector Gonzalez is actually pretty reputable with Latin American players. But when it comes to players that play in like from the States, like he's kind of hit or miss on them. So I didn't put too much truth into that rumor at all. So that's the one big thing I feel like around this time of the year. Some of these guys are just tweeting to tweet, whether it's a Morosi, a Heyman, unless it's
Nightingale.
Yeah, Nightingale. Although he was accurate with the Nola one, so we'll give him credit there. Yeah, you got to take everything with a grain of salt, unless the player's saying it outright. I mean, just take it with a grain of salt.
That's what I said last week. I said I'm not trusting no reporter, no tweets until the Mets say we signed this player. All right, I'm all for it. If I see a tweet, Ohtani might come to the Mets, I'm not going to get myself excited because I already know it's not true or it's BS. Like,
yeah, unless it's Jeff Passan tweeting it, then it's true. That's the only time it's true. That's the only time I'll believe anything that I'm reading. So, moving on to the next topic, we had the non-tender deadline the other day. So a bunch of other players are now in the free agent market. Couple big names, couple outlier free agents that could help any team with some depth issues. I'm kind of interested in your guys' takes on what's a player that you would take a chance on, or what's a big surprising player that was non-tender to contract. So Jake, I'll kick it off with you first.
I want to talk about two guys. One is just something I want to talk about. It's Kyle Lewis, man. What a fucking fall from grace that guy had. 2020 Rookie of the Year, 260 and 11 home runs in that shortened season, and just not a good player anymore, man. Dished from Seattle to Arizona. I don't even know if he'll be in the league next year. Honestly, he might be in the minors. But one guy that actually interests me was Austin Meadows. He's dealt with injuries out in Detroit the last couple of years.
Mental and physical.
Right, that too, yeah. But it makes sense to non-tender. I'm not saying it's surprising or anything like that. But man, in 2021, he had 27 homers, 106 RBIs. He was an all-star in 2019 with 33 homers. That's a big lefty bat that, if he can stay healthy, can be a guy that can come off somebody's bench for a contender. Like a David Peralta, like a Jake Cave, but way better, something like that. He's a really good lefty bat that can hit right-handed pitching real well. Just got to stay on the field, man. That's his biggest problem. Not a surprising one, but something that'd be interesting for some of these contending teams.
Yeah, we're not far removed from Austin Meadows being a key player on those Rays teams.
Yep.
It seemed once the Rays kind of figured they were done playing with him, and shipped him off to Detroit. I mean, who wouldn't be depressed and have
Right.
mental issues getting traded to Detroit? But yeah, I definitely like Austin Meadows. I hope he can have a comeback because he was one of the better. I mean, when I saw him traded to Detroit, I was like, yeah, Detroit's making some moves. Like Austin Meadows is a good pickup. Complete downward spiral for
played 40 games.
Bunch of reasons, whether it was physical or mental. So hopefully maybe a team gives him a chance to kind of get back on track. So Kevin, what's a couple guys that were non-tendered that you think the Mets fit pretty well?
So I saw like Dom Smith got non-tenured and bring him back. I don't care. Bring him back. Daniel Vogelback got non-tenured and good riddance.
He asked for it.
Goodbye. Can't stand him. But yeah, man. Dom Smith, bro. I loved him as a Met, and I was sad. And then when he went to Washington, I was like, dude, really? Like, out of all the teams, go to Washington. It's just, it hurt.
Yeah, Dom Smith. He's another guy. We mentioned Kyle Lewis in like 2020. Dom Smith 2020, like elite year. Like everything across the board was all right. Well, this is a nice guy. Not only could this guy be a pivotal piece of the Mets lineup, but then when it went forward, when they started making the splashes in free agency and trades, they were like, this is a good guy to have on your bench that can play a variety of different positions, come up late in the games. He has a lot of pop, contact, whatever you want. And then he just kind of went downhill after that. And then he ends up on the Nationals, who are in the midst of a pretty hefty rebuild. And he had a horrible year for them and ended up getting pretty much a no-brainer non-tender, similar with the other guys Jake mentioned. So Dom Smith returned to New York. That's a trend that a lot of non-tender players do, is they actually do return to the team that they had success with, because you can get these guys on minor league deals. With like an invitation to spring training. And then, I mean, for a team like the Mets, if they pick up Dom Smith on like $1 million, do you think they give a shit if they cut him after spring training? They don't, because it's either they get a lot what they want out of him, or it's like, all right, well, it's not going to work out. You can either take the option of minors, or we'll just pay your salary and cut you. So I do think the idea of Dom Smith going back to New York, especially when they're in a transition year, don't know if they're going to compete in 24. They could. But they obviously have their eyes set on 2025. He would be a nice bridge piece on that team. So that's something I didn't even think of. Josh, what about you, other fellow Mets fan? Are you on the Dom Smith train, or are you going somewhere else?
I don't know if I'm fully convinced on the Dom Smith thing. Like, what you said, it was like, yeah, okay, it does make sense. They get him on a minor league deal, see what he can do. If he doesn't do anything, then there's no harm, no foul, right? But it's like, really, the whole Dom Smith thing, like, I didn't even think about Dom Smith until Kevin just like brought him up. It's like, dude, there was a time in my life as a Mets fan where I was like, I want Dom at first base over Pete, because like there was like Dom was like that lefty bat that they hadn't had for a while. That was just like, he could hit both sides. He had the pop to get it over the wall. It was like, I don't know, and then just out of nowhere, So I mean, I'd be open to it. Maybe he does need to change the scenery. Maybe he just needs to go back. Maybe we'll have to find out. Like the other players, like the big one, I think like everybody's going to talk about. I'll go ahead and say the obvious one is Brandon Woodruff. I don't think he'd be an ultimate good fit for the Mets just because he's not going to play all next year. So teams got to remember that. But it was just really surprising to see the Brewers non-tender him because he's far from a bad pitcher. Like he's a solid 2-3 guy to have in your rotation. So like I think any team, honestly, I think the Phillies honestly should go out and get him, sign him to a 2-year deal. Just let him ride out that season next year, let him get healthy and just see what he can do in that last year on his contract. I think he'll be the most surprising one out of everybody. The one most worth the gamble.
Yeah, I definitely think out of all the players, I think Brandon Woodruff's definitely the biggest one. I understand why the Brewers did non-tender him just after reading more about it. He was going to be a free agent at the end of the season regardless. He was eligible for the qualifying offer, but you're not going to offer a guy who had major shoulder surgery a 1 year, $24.5 million deal,
right,
which is what the number is going to be next year. So they figured, hey, just non-tender them, save $11 million. They're kind of in a situation of flux right now. They don't know if they're going to be competing in 24. They don't know if they're going to be on a total rebuild or if they're retooling the roster. They really don't know at this point in the season and the off season because they still have a bunch of guys that are rumored that could be traded, whether it's Cease, Adames, Yelich. His name was brought up by us, but I've also seen it mentioned around other places as well. Woodruff, he's definitely surprising because he did have major shoulder surgery. He's actually going to get a 2 or 3 year deal. I've seen a lot of things where it's a 2-year deal with a club option, and the club option gets picked up if he meets a criteria or innings in year 2, and then it just gets automatically picked up. Or it could be a mutual option where if he does good enough and then he feels comfortable, he'll go test out the free agent market again. I wrote about it. I definitely think it's a Andrew Freeman Dodgers type of signing because they've done it before. They did it with Tommy Kahnle from the Yankees. He rehabbed for a whole year, came back next season, and was a pretty big piece in their bullpen in 2022. It's definitely something that a lot of teams would feel comfortable with because you could just sign him this year, give him a $5 million deal, and then maybe $15 million in year 2 if he wants to make you a free agent, or you can put some options in there. I definitely think he is going to get a multi-year deal in that regard. You're getting a almost legitimate ace. I mean, he's been overshadowed by Corbin Burns in that front, but he's been probably one of their most dominant pitchers, especially in his playoff track record is extremely well. I mean, he even hit a home run off of Clayton Kershaw. So honestly, he is a dog. There is some chance that he could come back in 2024. It's extremely doubtful. But say if you're a playoff contending team like the Dodgers, like the Phillies, like another team that could just use these pitchers, if he can come back in September in either a bullpen or a piggyback in the rotation, that'll be big for those teams. So I definitely still think he's the most interesting out of this bunch.
Yeah, his multi-year deal is the way it's going to go. It's a lot like what you said about Clayton Kershaw early in the year. A 2-year deal with a club option or something like that, where you get a little bit in the beginning and then you get most of the money in the second year. I think you need a team that's really trying to, on the cusp of, really, really contending. I'm not sure if they're going to be a top contender. Honestly, dude, he seems like a Padre, man. He seems like that Blake Snell replacement. It seems like, Padres figure out their financial situation, see what's going on this year. Maybe maybe they win a shit ton of games, 80 plus games, and just make the playoffs or just miss out on the playoffs. Next year you add, like you said, a fringe ace on a cheaper deal. Can't beat that.
Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, I wrote about it. I thought the Dodgers definitely will look into it, but I think if they're going to give anyone a 2-year kind of deal to rehab year 1, it's going to be Kershaw. I don't think the Dodgers would feel comfortable having 2 guys with shoulder injuries rehabbing for 1 year and then hopefully rebounding the next year, especially when the Dodgers rotation's kind of in shambles right now. Walker Buehler is a free agent at the end of the year. They really don't have anyone under contract except for these rookie guys. So it really just depends on what they do in free agency. I wrote down, I said it's either they give Brandon Woodruff that deal or they give it to Kershaw. They won't do it to both of them just because I feel like the fan outrage and it really just doesn't make sense. It's okay to do it with one or maybe one every couple of years because, all right, maybe I'm looking forward to 2025. Hopefully he can give us some innings, but I think the Dodgers are kind of in like we really need to address the now. So I don't see them taking a chance on him.
Trevor Bauer's available.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, MLB, they're in the news again. The pitch clock was a huge thing that was implemented this season. Across the board, it was actually a pretty good change for the league. Games were faster, got a lot more viewership from it. Pretty much it was a win across all boards. I was totally on board with shorter games, especially since my team doesn't start their games until almost 10 o'clock every night. And then even the playoff games, it's like, all right, I don't have to sit here for 4 hours and watch a game. A lot of these games were finished in that 2.5 hour, 3 hour range. So, but they are looking to adjust it yet again, and they believe that they can get it approved before the start of the 2024 season. And the change is shifting it from the 20 seconds to the 18 seconds. I've kind of asked you guys, starting with Josh, is it a necessary adjustment or is the MLB just kind of reaching?
I think they're reaching, honestly. I was, when they initially announced the pitch clock, like a lot of other people were like, why are you doing this? It's like they didn't really see the need for it or whatever. But after the season, I can say, for myself, I do like the pitch clock, the games being shorter, and it seemed more interesting overall, in terms of game speed, what happens during the game. But I just feel like they're gonna ruin it if they go to change it next season. 2 seconds might not seem like much, but in a baseball game, for a pitcher, 2 seconds is a lot of time. That's 2 seconds they're losing, just getting themselves ready and doing what they're supposed to do. So I feel like the way I'm looking at it is, if the 20-second worked as well as it did for you and got the results that you wanted, from the change initially, is why are you going to try and lessen it? I just feel like they're going to end up ruining a lot more than they're going to fix.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot about that, just because I feel like the pitchers and the hitters all made their adjustments in the spring training and in the first month or two of the season. And then from then on, I barely even noticed the pitch clock at all. So 2 seconds may not seem like a lot, but I mean, anyone that's played baseball or watches it intensely is like all of us. 2 seconds can be a lot, almost feels like minutes out there, especially on the most important part of the baseball field, which is being the pitcher. Kevin, I'll kind of shoot the same question to you. Is the MLB reaching with this, or is it necessary?
Oh, they're definitely reaching. I mean, you put in the pitch clock last season, and then it works. It was good. It definitely made the games go by quicker midway through the season. I totally forgot about it. I was at games sometimes, and it would go off, and I'd be like, oh, pitch clock violation. You just forget about it. So now you want to add 18, you want to drop it down to 18 seconds. Why even? You wait a year to do that? At least wait a couple of years to try it out or something. Like you said, you have these pitchers and players adjust to the 20 seconds, and now it's like, all right, we're going to go drop it down to 18. So now they got to adjust again. I think it's stupid.
Yeah, it is a little strange because usually with rule changes, I mean, in the past, the MLB would try to implement them in the minors to test it out, get actual data from it, because that's what they were doing with the pitch clock before. Before it was implemented in major leagues, it was in the minor leagues. We would, I mean, us three are from Delaware. We would go to a Blue Rocks game and you would see it a couple years ago. The pitch clock was there. Jake, I know I'll spin the question a little bit. Me and you've talked about it before. Is this kind of a problem for pitching injuries that are already seen to be on the rise? That's been the vocal point for them arguing against reducing it to 18. Do you agree with that?
I think that's my big issue here. Like Kev said, they just you just implement this rule in the major leagues, at least last year. You have all these guys adjust to it. in my opinion, I don't think they have enough data to support another move. Like you said, we talked about it a lot during the season about arm injuries. Even people speaking about it. I mean, Trevor Mays tweeted about it on Twitter. He tweets a lot of shit on Twitter, but he's talked about it a lot. I just think it's too soon. Like, I'm not completely against it. Like you said, 2 seconds is feels like a lot of time sometimes. But in the grand scheme of things, it's probably 10 minutes off a game, something like that. I think the bigger thing is, like Kev said, getting the players used to it, and then like we talked about, getting more data just on how it affects the players and the health more so. I think people were really focused on length of games and intensity and things like that, but nobody really worried about how it's affecting these guys physically. I think that's a problem that they need to look at before they try to keep reducing it. And then I love 3-hour games. I think 3 hours is a perfect niche. So I wouldn't like to see it go any shorter. But I'm a baseball fan at heart, so I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I definitely understand the logic behind it for Major League Baseball. They saw the pitch clock this year. They said that was a total win across the board in terms of rule changes. I guess they're finding a way to shorten the game even more because there's still that general audience in the United States that doesn't want to sit around watching even a 2.5-hour baseball game. So they want to try to get it as quickly as possible. I think at the end of the day, there is an issue with arm and elbow injuries in baseball right now. We're seeing more and more pitchers go down with a variety of injuries, and we've talked about it a bunch. We've written about it a bunch on our page, but it's definitely a huge issue that the MLB, I feel like that's something that the MLB should be addressing is, all right, why are we having an epidemic of pitching injuries at an all-time rate? And then kind of looking at it from last year, like how many pitchers did we see go down with shoulder or arm or elbow inflammation or any of the type of injuries that a pitcher can get? How much is that attributed to the pitch clock? We don't know until we have a larger sample size. So changing it so quickly, I don't really like it. I would be surprised if it is approved and implemented by 2024. If it is, unfortunately, teams and pitchers and players are just going to have to adjust. I'm sure it won't be as big of an adjustment as it was last year, but it'll definitely we'll feel the effects a little bit, depending on how the pitchers react to all of it.
I think soon it's going to come. We've seen it with the NFL the last few years starting to look at more into the injuries because of all the CTE situations, things like that. If MLB, you don't love to say it, but they want their money. But if you drop it 2 seconds and Corbin Burns and Garrett Cole and Zach Gallen, these studs are getting injured every year, they're going to be like, oh shit, we got to do something. We can't keep letting these guys keep getting injured because that's going to drop viewership too. I think it'll come soon. It's going to be an injury. They're going to start doing some shit to look into the injuries, but it's just not soon enough, probably.
Yeah, it's definitely something we'll have to keep an eye on. Like I said, it's kind of just been in discussion about shortening the pitch clock yet again. Right. If anything, they may, like I said earlier, they may just try to implement in the minors, test it out, and then implement it in the major leagues in like probably 2025, 2026. Speaking of the future of baseball, the Oakland A's are no longer in Oakland. They are now officially unanimous vote from MLB owners. They are moving to Las Vegas in the next couple of years. I think their first inaugural season would be 2027 or 2028, somewhere around those. I kind of want to get your guys' takes on the A's officially relocating, and then kind of your thoughts and opinions. I'll start with Josh.
It's not a move that I was surprised to see at all. It's been something that's been talked about the last couple of years, like about moving from Oakland because, we all know how bad of a place Oakland was for the Athletics. Like just the stadium and everything around it was in complete shambles. And, teams moving from Oakland over the last couple of years hasn't been a new thing at all. Like we saw pretty sure the Warriors changed arenas. They're not specifically in Oakland anymore. You've seen the Raiders move to Vegas too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm not surprised by the move at all. The only thing that really surprises me about the whole thing is, the where they're going to play next year. Like we all saw that come out. It's like they're going to be playing at their minor league park. They're going to be playing at Oracle Park where the Giants play. Is like, it's just a weird thing to have. Like, are they even going to be called the Oakland A's? They're not.
Right.
I don't know. It's something that's going to change the landscape until they're actually in Vegas. It's just going to be really weird to see.
Yeah. Kevin, I'll shoot it off to you. Same question. The Las Vegas A's, does it sound good or do you have a problem with it?
I mean, the Las Vegas A's sound good. Just I'm happy that Vegas is getting a team because the last baseball team that was in Vegas was the Mets affiliate. What was it? The
51s or whatever.
51s, yeah. So it's we knew it was going to happen, but we didn't know I guess we knew it was going to be Oakland. I mean, that stadium was just that's like the worst stadium of all time. I hate that stadium. And I hated when the Raiders played there, and I hate when the Athletics play there. It's just it's just ready to fall apart. So I feel like they might do a name change. Gotta maybe, I don't know. That's gonna be different. Yeah.
Yeah, the A's, that's been the thing I've been reading about is a lot of people, even guys like Jimmy Kimmel are commenting about it on their late night show saying, I mean, regardless how you guys feel, but he said that it's not for it being a baseball town, the baseball fans that are there, it's not going to be A's fans right off the bat. It's not even going to be D-backs fans. He was saying it's a Dodger town. Pretty much almost all the West Coast in that desert area, even in Arizona itself, it's a Dodgers town. Most of the time, it's Dodger fans that are selling out the Chase Stadium. So it's going to be hard for them to get grassroots. And I think the reason why other teams that have moved there have done well besides the Raiders is because they were expansion franchises,
right.
Whether it's the Women NBA or the NHL. It's kind of like, all right, yeah, this is our city. This is a new team. Now we have some roots to put in there. Renaming the A's is pretty bold because they're such a historic franchise. And this isn't the first time they're moving. You got they were in Philadelphia, they moved to Oakland, and now they're moving to Vegas. So I find it hard that the owner is going to change the name. I feel like he wants to keep as much branding as possible on the move. But it'll definitely be something to look out for, especially with a lot of fan backlash. Especially, I assume almost everyone in Oakland, unless they're a diehard fan, will probably just pretty much move on. Jake, I'm interested before we move on. Your take on Oakland moving to Vegas.
Yeah, like Josh said, I think it's gonna be real weird at first. This kind of fucking transition phase, almost like when the Blue Jays played in Buffalo for the COVID year. It's gonna be weird, but like you said, man, I think honestly, I like what Kev said. It's a storied franchise. Obviously, they moved a few times. They've been in Philadelphia, they've been in Kansas City, they've been in Oakland. But man, if you want those Vegas people to buy in, man, make them a whole new fucking team. Make them a whole new team. Give them something to like, because if you bring in some old, green and yellow, classic team, which every MLB fan is gonna love, but like you said, how many MLB fans are in Las Vegas? Yeah, it's gonna be weird. Obviously, I don't want to see the Athletics go. We talked about it a little bit before the stream. Wish it was another team that was real shitty, like the Marlins or something like that. But like you guys said in the beginning, it was bound to happen. I like the Vegas move. I like the Vegas has a team. It just sucks that the Athletics and the Oakland fans are really getting the short end of the stick here.
Yeah, I feel bad for the fans. I've said it before, though. I am kind of excited that the Vegas is getting a team. I think it's pretty much long overdue now, just because the MLB is looking to get into different geographical locations. Sports betting, all that's huge right now. So I feel like most sports leagues are trying to get their roots in Vegas. We saw with the NFL, the Women NBA, NHL, now the MLB is getting involved. It's kind of going to be interesting to see what they do because one, it's in Vegas. I don't know if you guys know what the weather's like there in the middle of the summer, but it's fucking hot. So they were talking about because like the plans that they showed for the stadium weren't in a dome, and I was like, okay, well, so you can't have day games for like the entire
Right.
season. So I agree with Josh though too. It is going to be weird seeing them transition. So none of us have lived through any type of relocation in
Right.
baseball. The last one was technically, I think, the Nationals from Montreal to Washington, and they had like a weird. They didn't have a weird. It was kind of straightforward. They played at JFK, the Nationals, for I believe a season or two, and then they played in Nationals Park. This time, it's extremely different because they play in Oakland in the Coliseum for one more year, and that's 2024. Then it's expired. So then they have to play. It's been rumored that they're going to be playing either sharing a stadium with the San Francisco Giants or playing in their minor league team, who also plays in Vegas. Coincidentally, the A's minor league affiliate, I believe they're the Aces, the Vegas Aces.
Yep.
They play there now. I think it would just be a lot more straightforward if they just said, "All right, Aces, go find a new stadium." Might as well just absorb them. I said this before. I was like, the A's are pretty much a minor league team right now to begin with. So you might as well just say, all right, let's just play there. It'll be interesting for sure. It kind of sucks, though, because I don't think you can count on the A's doing anything for maybe another 4 or 5 years. Because why would they put any effort into trying to win? And then Trevor Plouffe kind of brought up a pretty good point on Talking Baseball at John Boy Media. He said, what player would want to go to bring his family to a team there on like a 1 or 2 year deal when it's in so much flux where you don't know where you're playing? And I feel like fans really don't think about that for the player side. Like they're people too. Like they want to establish roots. And technically right now, they don't even have. I don't even think they have the land bought for where the stadium's even going to go yet. So they have no idea when it's going to be done, where it's going to be. They just know it's going to be in Vegas. So there's a shot now that the A's. It's bad right now. It's probably going to be a lot worse because if you're the owner or anybody running the team, why would you even want to put money in it? Just keep telling your fans, all right, once we get like 2027, 2028, maybe they're like, all right, let's start bringing some guys in. This is our first year. Let's put some new uniforms out there, get some new players out there, and then make the money. But right now, they have no intention of doing that right now.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but that's a really interesting point. They're going to be the last destination for most players in the next coming years. Like you said, nobody's that's established is ever going to want to go there. It's going to be, younger guys who haven't really proven themselves or older guys who are, just trying to get a check. I mean, we've seen it before. I imagine they'll probably do something like the Blue Jays did with Buffalo, kind of upgrade that Vegas stadium a little bit and hopefully do that over the this next year and have it ready so they can at least play, 81 games there a year. Because I think if you're playing in the Giants stadium, like as a home team, you're just going to look like an asshole.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that I was reading about why they don't just play at the Aces Stadium, and it's because technically no MLB team. I don't think most MLB teams don't own their minor league affiliates. They just lease them, which is why every so often they change. Like I mentioned the Blue Rocks earlier. They used to be with the Kansas City Royals. Now they're with the Washington Nationals, and that's because their lease agreement for the naming rights to play there came up, and then it pretty much rotates around. Some teams kind of stay there. Like I know the Iron Pigs and like Philadelphia's minor leagues. They've been there forever. Dodgers are kind of in the same territory as well. So that's why they can't really set foot, like say, all right, we're going to make renovations. We're going to get this in because technically it's not theirs. But would they buy it? Probably not, because they're going to want to be building another stadium. So that's the thing. I think they have to pay to play there technically. So that's why they're like, all right, well, the league will step in and then they'll make them play at other stadiums that are already like MLB owned teams. Like the Giants own Oracle Park, like that's their stadium. So it's just going to be weird. Like there's no way getting around it. I want to I'm interested to see MLB The Show in 2026 and you click on the A's. What does it say? Random? Is it just like a roll of the dice and then you just play at a random stadium? So that'll be interesting for the A's. But I'm kind of on board with the Vegas A's. I kind of hope they don't rebrand. I think there is a chance that they can kind of build off that new fan base. I mean, obviously we're on the East Coast, but how many A's fans, especially now after how many bad years they've had, how many really are they out there? Obviously they had a lot of fans going to go out, but there is a reason why they're leaving too. So I feel like you have to look at both sides of it. And I think it's been long overdue that they get a new stadium. They just couldn't come in agreement with that in Oakland. So typically that's what happened. That's what happened with the Dodgers back then. They didn't get a new stadium in Brooklyn. So they said, all right, we're leaving. So it happens in the sport. It's just unfortunate when it does happen.
And that's like the silver lining thing that I see in this whole thing is like what you guys said. Once they actually get there and, they change the name and everything, they do have an opportunity to be like really exciting. Like whether they change the name or not, they can, I think it was Jake or Cody said that they can do like new uniforms, everything, like just basically a whole rebrand. You don't even got to change the name, but like they're going to be a new team. They're going to be in a new market. And I feel like that's going to be like a really exciting time period for baseball because I don't know how many players. It's like, it's yet to be seen. But like, I wonder how many players are actually going to be able to want to make that jump to like be a part of that and like ride that wave as being like this fresh new start essentially. So I feel like once we actually get to that point, this whole move is going to be worth it. It's going to be a really exciting time.
I just hope they don't give us like Arizona Diamondbacks gradient uniforms. Like that was the worst thing ever. I just want some crisp ass green and yellow jerseys from the Athletics.
Yeah, I definitely think they're gonna keep that same style. If anything is probably gonna go away, it'll probably be. I think they're gonna go more of a throwback look with the Kelly green and the yellow. And then obviously they'll just have to change the Oakland and I already saw some designs of some people like shooting out there with a Vegas sign on it, or especially with the Oakland A's, maybe they have an alternate with like LV on the side. I don't know. It'll be up to Nike and seeing what they want to do. Bring back the
elephant.
Yeah, bring back the elephant. It's very neutral. Yeah, but yeah. So I'm looking forward to the A's moving to Vegas, but like we said, it's going to be like almost a 10-year process for them to kind of get their get it going. And I don't think right now, especially next season, it's going to be as interesting to watch because, if you're in Oakland right now, who's going to want to go to an Oakland A's game, especially when they're pretty much done, even though they have that 1 year left in Oakland.
Like 80-year-old dudes. That's about it.
Yeah, about it. Tickets are going to be free. They're going to be able to walk. They're going to pay you to go to the game. And but
just wear green.
Other than that, that's pretty much all the major topics from this week. Talked about a bunch of stuff, rumors, Trout, Nola, Phillies going all in, it looks like, for 2024. Thanks again for Josh and Kevin from Piping Hot Gas coming on. Always love talking with more people to talk about baseball. There's going to be a lot of stuff that happens. I feel like the Nola news is definitely going to start steamrolling free agency. We mentioned last episode that it was reported that Ohtani, we knew we were going to get him in here. He could possibly sign either before or during the winter meetings, which, guys, it's not that far away. It's only pretty much 2 weeks out. That's when a lot of these moves happen, especially in the trade market. So definitely keep following both of our pages. Follow Jake, follow me. We're going to be tweeting constantly about anything that is either happening in baseball or for our respective teams. But other than that, I have nothing else to say other than thanks again for our guests coming on yet again.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you guys for having us.
Always so be sure to follow Piping Hot Gas, follow us to get all the latest news. We're going to be reacting for pretty much everything going on out there throughout the baseball world. And then over at Piping Hot Gas, they cover a lot more things like football. I know they do their weekly picks. So keep picking the Browns, Josh.
I'm going to win 1 week.
1 week, I'm going to
win. So, but other than that, that's us from here. We'll see you next time.